friends. Thank you guys for joining me for our live stream of the day. Um, so a few things I want to talk about before I get into the meat and potatoes of this live stream. Um, First off, I just want to send some wonderful thoughts out to Dave. He's a dear friend of ours from the members club that me and my fiance belong to. His wife, Barb, who was a very big supporter of mine, an absolute wonderful person. And as my fiance so lovingly calls her, his Philly bitch, because they're both Phillies fans. She unfortunately passed away, and it was a sad day. It was a very sad day. Um, so my thoughts go out to Dave and to Barb. She was one of a kind, and I'm definitely going to miss her, especially her enthusiasm for the books and pretty much anything I ever did. Um, a wonderful person that I met while through Eric. So there's that, and then we'll talk about the answers to the question, your favorite childhood book. So I got one response on the actual page from Joanne, my number one fan, I would have to say, because she's on here all the time. Um, she wrote that her favorite book had to be like the Nancy Drew novels, which were great fun. And I did read those when I was younger too. Some of the Hardy Boys and stuff too. I've always liked mysteries. My favorite book, like I mentioned, was Where the Wild Things Are. Um, it's it's so wrapped up in my childhood, everything about that book. And I love the artwork and still do. I really enjoyed reading it to my son and pointing out who my favorite monster was. It was great. My best friends who live two doors down, they chimed in with they actually have the same favorite childhood book, which is The Giving Tree, another big classic. My fiance had a couple different answers. One that I remember though was Danny the Dinosaur, which I don't remember that book at all, but apparently it was very instrumental to like building part of his personality. He described it as some kid who didn't have friends, and then he went to a museum and this dinosaur came to life and he rode the dinosaur and got revenge. So yeah, I'll have to look that one up sometime. Um, so into our subject for today is music and its influencing, the way it influenced my writing. Um, I don't generally listen to music when I'm writing, honestly. I know that some people do. It helps the creative process. I find it distracting. However, there are a few select songs that I envisioned if my book ever became a movie or a show or something like that. The way that I write, I always visualize the scene as if I was directing a movie, always. So part of that with really powerful, potent scenes involves music. So towards the end of book one, um, it's the first scene when they enter the Phipps Bend property. I don't want to give too many spoilers for people who haven't read the books, so I'm not going to go too much into detail. But anyone who has read the book will know this was probably the most heart-wrenching scene in book one, besides maybe Gregor telling his story. Um, I actually had the people that knew me personally who read the book, they usually got to that point and they texted me and said, I hate you and I love you at the same time. And that's when I know I'm doing my job right. So that particular scene, um, the entire scene, the timing of it, and everything is set to a song by Snow Patrol called Run. I suggest you look it up. There's one line in particular in that song that really stuck in my head that represented Lilith and Chance. Um, and it was like it's something like even if it's just for today, making up for all that's lost. Because they spent so much time that they didn't have to apart. So it was that kind of moment. Um, but I love the break in that music, the high tempo, really powerful movement. And I figure, well, I pictured Lilith fighting off Humphreys at that point when it really gets to its fevered pitch. Um, other songs, that one I thought of before I wrote the scene, and then wrote the scene for that song. Um, in the second book, it was a little different. Like I wrote scenes, and then I would listen to music and be like, oh wow, that song would fit perfectly there. Um, so in book two, again, trying really hard not to give spoilers, but the extremely traumatic scene in the beginning of Rose of Jericho, um, that scene, there's a few songs that kind of work for it, but the one that I liked the most was by Lifehouse, and it's called Flight. It's very somber in the beginning, and kind of like, you're drowning, you can't go on type of thing. And then when they reach the room and her and Chance have their private moment there, that's when the hopefulness of the song towards the end kind of builds in. And I think that song would be perfect for that moment. They also did another song called Yesterday's Sun, which I really love very much. And I kind of visualize at least an instrumental version of that maybe um, during the Gregor's funeral at the end of the book. Yep, spoiler, I gave it away. Sorry. He doesn't make it. I'll also give you another spoiler. A lot of people don't make it. It's just the way it's going to be. Um, book three will be no different, although it's not going to be so much people that you know that are in danger. It's kind of leading up to the fact that in book four, the people that you know will all be in danger. So, yeah, I try and stick to the cardinal rule that no one is safe. And I've always felt that to be super powerful when it's in a show that way, where they're not scared to kill off main characters. There's always a balance, though. You have to know that if you kill off this character, even though it's a main character, it's going to have an impact, but it's not going to make someone say, oh, well, I'm done reading this, or I'm done watching this. Um, an example is the TV show Zoo. So I loved the first season. The first season was very smart, very good, interesting concepts. It kind of disintegrated from there and got really bad, really bad. And there was only one character that I was watching it for at that point. And the beginning of the last season, they killed off that character. I was like, well, I think I'm done watching this show. I don't even want to watch it. I watched a couple more episodes because I just couldn't believe that they would actually do that, because it was clear and obvious that he was the only reason that most people were watching that show. And he did come back in a completely absurd and ridiculous way. And then the whole season just, oh gosh, yeah. There's a reason why it didn't continue. Even though, Netflix did pick up the show, which was cool, so I got to see it at least. But I completely understand why they decided not to make any more new seasons for that show. So the balance is real important. I think Game of Thrones showed that very, very well, that they could kill off main characters, but they had enough characters that were influential that people would continue to watch, even if their designated favorite character died. Um, Although honestly, when they killed off Jason Momoa in the first season, I didn't really want to keep watching. He was the draw for me. But there were other people that were, at least their characters were interesting. So I did watch a few seasons of it, I think 3 seasons, and then I jumped in on the last season. So I was a little lost in places, but knew enough to know that the last season was fairly disappointing. As I'm sure that pretty much any Game of Thrones fan would tell you. It's pretty disappointing. Although not the number one disappointing series finale ever, which would be Dexter, which I hear is coming back for a season. And I think that's kind of an apology to the fans for having such an awful, awful series finale, because it's, for me, the number one worst series finale ever. Dexter. Um, So another thing that I talked about a couple live streams ago, I think, um, was about how when I first got with Indie Gypsy, they wanted to turn the book, they wanted to movie shop it out in Hollywood for a TV show or a movie or something like that, which was real exciting because that's always where I've seen my books going. If I knew how to write a screenplay, I would have just done that probably. But I don't, so I leave that to the professionals. Um, However, when I first got with them, they wanted me to write a character synopsis for each of the main characters, and pick out my top 2 to 3 actors or actresses for each of the roles. And I said that I would look back through some of my documents and see if I could find that dream cast. And I did, because I tend to save everything, which is very important. So I'm not going to read the synopsis of each character because, they're kind of lengthy. But, if you've read the books, you know these characters. If you don't, maybe the actors or actresses I chose will make you want to read them even more. So for Lilith Adams, it was a really big choice. And I'm very particular about who would play that person. Now I did get a celebrity endorsement from Courtney Hope from The Bold and the Beautiful, who's very talented, beautiful redhead, would be great. And I would definitely support that. I think she would be fantastic. She recently did the face and body modeling and then the voiceover for a video game called Control. And it kind of gave me some insights into her acting and stuff because I honestly do not watch daytime dramas. I've never been a big fan of those. But I thought it was really cool. And I was real excited when we got the endorsement. And one of my plans was I wanted to broach her and talk to her about maybe doing the audiobook version. If she was interested in, acting in that role, maybe she'd be interested in doing the audiobook for Blood Lily. Unfortunately, I never got there. Um, and it's notoriously difficult to contact people who have celebrity status. So maybe in the future, that's something that can be worked out. I think it would be amazing. Although my number one pick for Lilith was actually Alexandra Breckenridge. Um, it's not a name that most people know right off the top of their head, but if you've seen the first season of American Horror Story, she played the young version of the maid in that series, that season. Really talented person. She has exactly the right look that I envision in my head. Some of the other ones that would be pretty close would be Bryce Dallas Howard and Jessica Chastain. Although Lilith is about 27 in Blood Lily. So, as I pick these people, time continues to march on, and people are not ageless, unfortunately, unless you're Paul Rudd, apparently, because he never ages. So on to Chance Devereaux. So this is a very controversial one, and I've had a lot of input from people, and the look has been varied from person to person. Like, it's so amazing to me how many people have a completely different view of what Chance would look like. For me, I didn't have a actor in mind, and I've spent a lot of time like watching movies and stuff and being like, could he be Chance? Is he a Chance type person? Does he have a Chance smile? The smile's pretty key. And the whole thing is that I wanted him to be kind of loose and casual, almost a pretty boy, but not quite, and a little bit of rough edges. So I think the first name that me and Emily were batting around was Joe Manganiello. But he seems a little bit darker tone at the hair and skin and everything than I was truly picturing. Although his height is right, because Chance is about 6'3". But he, like I said, that was several years ago, and time has marched on. So I do have some other picks. I did see there was a TV show, it was a comedy sitcom I really cannot remember the name of it, but this guy played a professional hockey player in it. He was pretty funny and goofy. Um, but there were a few times in that show where he had like a serious moment, and I could really see that kind of sarcastic attitude come out. And his name is Derek Theler. It's Theler is the last name. He has a pretty good look, and he is tall, and I think he'd be a pretty good fit. But some of the other people I had on my list, Jason Momoa, I mean, he definitely would fit the Cajun part of it quite well. Although he's a little bit more rugged than what I was imagining, but you know, with his charismatic, like sarcastic smile, like he would do a great job. He would do the part service. Joel Kinnaman was another choice of mine. First time I saw him was in Suicide Squad, which I was not a fan of, by the way, and you know, I'm sure people would disagree with me, but they spent way too much time with flashbacks and not enough time on actual story. However, I couldn't stand his character in that movie, so that definitely was not the point where I was like, oh, he could play Chance. That wasn't until I saw Altered Carbon. Excellent, excellent show. Like the first season was fantastic, and he was fantastic in it. And his kind of sarcastic, mean attitude, just looking out for himself kind of attitude was it was very reminiscent. I liked it. Um, Another person I think that could do pretty good with it would be Armie Hammer. I've seen him in a few different movies where you know he kind of gives that kind of attitude that I look for when I'm looking for an actor that can play Chance. So I mean, those are my main picks for Chance. When it comes to Cohen, I talked about this the other day, and really there's only one person on the planet I would ever want to play Cohen. And I never talk about Cohen's age in the books or how old he looks like he is really. Um, so that's kind of on purpose because I really, really, really want Alexander Skarsgård to play that part. Like with every fiber of my being, I want it to be Alexander Skarsgård. If for some reason he couldn't, it should be very sad and disappointing. The only other name I put down was Ryan Gosling. that's that's really the only other name I could think of. So, her partner Felipe Alvarez, he was another character that I wrote with someone very, very specific in mind. Although you know this was many, many years ago, and he might be too old to play this part at this time, but I'm not sure if he's even still acting. But it was an actor called Ruben Blades. Um, if you've seen Predator 2, he was one of the police detectives that was killed. Um, I always liked his character in that movie and his kind of personality, and that's what I went with when I was writing Felipe. Um, Although David Zayas from quite a few things, but most Dexter was the first time I saw him. He would be excellent as well. Um, and then I think I threw George Lopez in there. Just I don't know. I don't really envision him playing that part, but you know, I guess he could. He could. Um, so Alvarez is Spanish, you know, heritage from Spain. So yeah, I wanted someone that would have that range as well with Alvarez because he is very funny and kind of nonchalant about things, and but he has this deep well of love for Lilith and her family, and he does take things very seriously, and he does have that almost father figure kind of mentality when it comes to Lilith, kind of guiding her. And you see that in book one, but you hear about it a little bit more when Gloria talks with Lilith in book two. So onto Gregor Adams, so Lilith's dad. Um, I have a variety of characters, of actors that I liked for this role. Um, I think my number one pick, although his accent is not, it's not Scottish, but then Gregor isn't originally Scottish. That's just his chosen name. And he talks about his time living in Scotland in like the Middle Ages. Is Mads Mikkelsen because he is fantastic and he's very distinctive, but at the same time he could blend into a crowd. And that's very much what Gregor is. Like, he's meant to be a character that never really stands out. He wants to blend into the background, but he has his own distinct personality as well, and the demons living inside his head. So Mads would be fantastic for that. Tim Murphy is another one. He is actually a Scottish or Irish actor. I can't remember which. He had a few stints in different TV shows. Criminal Minds, he was in that for a while. Things like that. He has that kind of, you would believe that he would be capable of violence, which is good and bad at the same time, because you don't really believe that about Gregor until he starts telling his story. And then my last name on there was never really a consideration until now, because years have passed. And that's Gerard Butler. I've always been a fan. I know that some of the movies are not fantastic, but I've always been a huge fan of his acting, and if he's in a movie, I will watch it. Um, 300 was a cincher for me. Like, that movie just, I've seen it in the theater like 6 or 7 times, including IMAX. It was just a fantastic movie. So Spencer McEwen, which is that is Lilith's cousin, who plays kind of a somewhat unlikable character, I would say, without giving away spoilers. Um, I have three very distinct different actors in mind, and the first one that came to mind when I thought about Spencer was James McAvoy. He is one of the most talented actors I think I have ever seen on screen. Super, super talented, but he's very, very gifted at playing a slightly mentally unbalanced person to even a completely mentally unbalanced person. He has a true gift, and I think he would be excellent in that role. Giovanni Ribisi, he would also be a great choice for that role. He's been in quite a few things, but the thing I remembered him the most from, I think, was Nicolas Cage's brother in Gone in 60 Seconds. Has that kind of slightly, how do I put it? I guess kind of like a sleazy undertone, because you never really like Spencer, not truly. Um, and then my last one is Tom Hiddleston too, because I mean, Loki. I mean, he's a trickster, and that's very much kind of like how I envision Spencer, with those kind of actors. And then the last one that I have on my list for the main characters is Ashcroft Orrick, who is the bad guy. That's not really a spoiler. Few different choices here as well. A little bit of range. So my first choice is Peter Capaldi. He played one of the doctors on Doctor Who. Has the right look that I'm looking for when it comes to Ashcroft, because he's kind of like a thinner guy and has a very kind of distinctual face, like a bigger, thin nose, very gaunt type of person. And he probably has the best look of any of my choices. The other two choices are based solely on their acting ability, honestly. And that's Bryan Cranston, who, again, he is one of the most talented people out in Hollywood. And one of the other ones that's on the top of my list for actors is Gary Oldman. Fantastic actor, just very versatile, and plays so many different roles. It's just awesome. So those were my top picks for actors and actresses if Blood Lily and the following books became a movie or movies or TV show. I would love to see it as a TV show, though. I mean, I think that more so than a movie. I think there's so much that I could do with it in a kind of episodic setting. Especially since the first two books just kind of bleed together. They're so close to each other. It's literally they get back a few days in New York and then book two starts. So I mean, I'd love to do something like that, especially with all the streaming properties that are available right now. Like Netflix is always looking for new shows, Prime Video is always looking for new shows, even Hulu. So there's so many opportunities besides just big TV stations and premium channels. So it's more likely than ever, but at the same time, it's, you know, getting the word out there and getting people to notice, getting the right people to read the book. Um, I was trying to work with a screenwriter to write like either a pilot episode or to write an actual movie screenplay for Blood Lily, but we lost contact and I haven't heard from her in quite a while, since before all the COVID stuff. So I'm pretty sure that's kind of dead in the water. Not to mention I don't really have the money to pay her now because, like I said, it's been a rough financial year. So, you know, it's in the back burner, but, you know, it's still very much in my mind. So hopefully some way I can make that happen in the future. So today I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna ask the question of the day, which I'm very excited to hear answers for, and I hope I get lots of participation this time. So I think it's an excellent question. And I will reveal my answers on my next live stream, which will be Monday. Because as I said, I am working this weekend, so I don't have time to do that when I'm working because I work 12.5-hour shifts. So my question of the day, 5. You get to pick 5 of your desert island movies. So the 5 movies that you could watch every day for the rest of your life and be entertained and not bored. So that's my question. I want your top 5 desert island movies. Since I was talking about movies today and talking about actors and actresses and stuff, I felt it was appropriate. So I'm excited to hear your answers. You guys get to writing. We'll see what happens. And I will see you guys on Monday. And like I said, I'll reveal my top 5 desert island movies on Monday. So you guys have a great day, and I will see you then.